Hi, I'm Dale Powell, and welcome to that Spirit of Poe. Yes, we're for the next week going to be celebrating the life of Edgar Allan Poe and looking at some of the stories that made him famous. We're going to begin with the Cask of Amontillado. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I have borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose I gave utterance to a threat. At length, I would be avenged. This was a point definitively settled. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued to smile in his face, but he did not realize that my smile was now at the thought of his immolation and total destruction. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine, and it was about dusk one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much, and I was pleased to see him, that I thought I would never have been done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I've received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival?" "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado!" I have my doubts." "Amontillado!" he jeered. "Well, I must satisfy my doubts." "Amontillado!" "Okay, I can see you're busy. I'm on my way to Lucchese. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. Lucchese cannot tell Amontillado from sherry. And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go." "Whither?" "To your vaults." "My friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive that you have an engagement." "Lucchese, let us go nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado! You have been imposed upon, and as for Lucchese, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado." I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults, down to the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The Amontillado!" he said. "Oh, it's further on," I said. He turned toward me and looked into my eyes with 2 filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication, and he was coughing furiously. "How long have you had that cough?" I asked him. My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. "Come," I said, "we will go back. Your health is precious. Besides, I can get Lucchese." "Enough," he said. "The cough's a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough." "True, true," I replied. "And indeed I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily, but you should use all proper precaution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from the damps." "Drink," I said, presenting him with wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly, while the bells jingled. "I drink," he said, "to the buried that repose around us." "And I drink to your long life," I said. The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. We had passed through long walls of piled skeletons into the innermost recesses of the catacombs, I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by the arm above the elbow. I said to him, "The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, let us go back before you get sick. Your cough." "It's nothing," he said. "Let us go, but first, another draught of the Medoc." I broke and reached him a flagon of de Grave. He emptied it at a breath. We passed through a low range of arches, descended, passed on, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt, in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau rather to glow than to flame. Storyteller's note here. I cannot imagine how awful that air must have been if a torch will just glow rather than flame. But there are a lot of dead bodies down there. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the niche. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado." "But now, Lucchese—" "Lucchese is an ignoramus," interrupted my friend. And as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed him immediately at his heels, in an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had chained him to the granite. In its surface were two iron staples, distanced from each other about 2 feet, horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. "Pass your hand," I said, "over the wall. You cannot help feeling the niter. Indeed, it is very damp, I warned you. But once more let me implore you to return. No, you say? Well, then I must positively leave you." "The Amontillado," said my friend. "True," I replied, "the Amontillado." As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I have before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depths of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. Then there was a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might enjoy it, I sat down. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed my trowel and finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was now nearly level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A loud succession of screams came from the niche, but I replied to the yells. I re-echoed. I aided, I surpassed, I screamed louder than he did. I did this, and finally the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I'd finished a portion of the last and the 11th, and there remained but a single stone to be fitted in and plastered. I struggled with its weight, and I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "A very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Over our wine we will laugh." The Amontillado, I said. Yes, the Amontillado, but is it not getting late? Should we not be getting back to the palazzo? They'll be waiting for us. Let us be gone. Yes, I said. Let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor. Yes, I said. For the love of God. But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud. Fortunato? No answer. I called again. Fortunato? No answer still. I thrust a torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. Rest in peace, Fortunato, and pace requiescat.